Well, we have reached that point of no return where everything starts to freeze overnight. In fact, it's after 1 and everything's still pretty frozen, so that doesn't look great. So the theme for this video is going to be, let's get everything ready for winter. We're not going to focus on one particular project like I had hoped with the Plymouth convertible, but this stuff needs to get done and I need to get a video out, so here we go. First, I need to move the Ronnie truck back down to the house, so we'll get this fired up. I want to check fluids, make sure that the coolant is adequately rated, and to throw some washer fluid in this and see if that whole system works. It would be neat if it did. Tested out the four-wheel drive in this, just in the yard, and it seems to work. That's a lot of condensation under the hood here. That's neat. Now everything's wet. Guess I left the battery hooked up too, so let's hope that's not dead. I have this coolant tester. I don't know the science behind how they work, but they do. Well, it would seem we're a little low. I hate this style radiator where you can't just see down in there. Wonderful. I have no coolant up here. And I know where it is. It's in the trunk of the Torino from when I went to Chin Hot Springs. But that means I gotta go in the house to get the keys. This is for something showing up in the yard later. It's not for this truck. It starts up just fine. I've been driving the Torino to work lately, so it's been parked down by the house. But it's a pain in the ass not having everything in one centralized location. Of course, now that I'm topping this off, I'm not going to be able to test it until I run the truck, let the thermostat open, everything mix, and then it cool down again. I grabbed this Rain-X stuff from Fred Meyer because it was on sale. It's only good till 25 below. We get significantly colder than that, but at that point, who the fuck cares if the windshield's dirty or not? And yeah, I haven't fixed the ignition yet either. I've just been locking the door of the truck. Washers actually work. It's neat. You want to stand on the worst crate you own while getting up here to beat the shit out of the carburetor. While the truck's over there warming up at $3,000, we'll check the charger, which I know is going to be pretty bad because when we did the engine swap, we put mostly water back in. I mean, you gotta look at the price of coolant anymore. I wasn't gonna waste it if it was gonna blow anyway. Ah, yes. Still a piece of shit. So yeah, as you can see, that doesn't even register on here. There's the arrow down here that should point, you know, you're fine. Yeah, we're not fine. Still really need to get an exhaust on this. So later today or tomorrow, I'm going to need to drain out a lot of the practically water that's in the charger at the moment and circulate some coolant in there. Problem is, I don't want to run it too long because there is absolutely no transmission fluid left in the car because for some reason, it's decided it doesn't want to retain that anymore. That's why I haven't been driving it. I don't want to sit here and let it run and burn up the pump, but I think the transmission is already fucked anyway and I have a better one to put in. I just don't like breaking things that are already broken. But above that, I really don't like spending $50 on ATF every time I want to start the car. And I've looked for the leak. I've filled it up multiple times, let it sit on plywood up on ramps so I could get under there and see what was going on. Perfectly fine. You let it sit for a couple days though, pukes everything. And yeah, if I wanted to, I could probably figure it out, but I'm putting the other motor and transmission in this next summer anyway. Doesn't really matter at this point. The only other thing I have up in the yard at the moment with a functional cooling system is the International, so we'll check this a minute. If you did not know how to open the hood on one of these, there's a little bar down here that you pull down. That's the safety. And then you got to pull up on this and down on that bar at the same time, which I can't do on camera, but that's how you pop the hood. There we go. So much more green, and it's good till about 40 below. So I'll call that okay. I came up here the other night to move some stuff around the yard, and I saw a ton of moisture in the windows on this, and I was like, that's a little weird. So I started poking around to see what was happening, and there was actually standing water in the passenger side floorboard here. And, you know, That's not ideal because, as you can see, it's a really solid travel wall. I'd like to keep it that way. So I tore the front carpet out of the thing, which I was already missing a big section over there. I was going to do it anyway. Didn't plan on doing it right now, but here we are. Turns out it has the dreaded cowl rust. At the car meet last night, Brian popped the glove box out and was able to look up underneath there, and yeah, it's a little crunchy. So I got to figure out how to fix that, or at least seal it up for the time being, and I would really like to get this undercover for because there are various other small leaks up here on the roof rack runners and whatnot. I don't take it out near as often as I should. Next summer we'll probably actually invest some time into making it a little bit better all the way around. It's been here long enough. It deserves it, I suppose. Let's see how this starts back up warm now. Not bad. The heat works really well in this truck, which is going to be appreciated come winter. I don't like that the tank switch is right here, though, because I'm going to have a TISM'd moment and switch tanks going down the road, and I'll wonder, why'd the truck just die? We'll take it for a little run around the block before we park it back down by the house. I actually need to go out again with it later to pick up a tailgate from Brian so I can haul trash before it snows. You can see all the frost on the ground still. It's been pretty bad the last couple mornings. We got our first real frost last night, trying to warm up the Torino to head to work right now. It's not exactly happy about it. And now the walk back up to the storage yard. All these leaves have just turned into slime now. Makes it extra fun. I just got word that the next project car is actually en route right now to be delivered. So I suppose we should grab my little air compressor deal here and get this rolling again, because this is what I traded for what you'll see here very soon. Don't get me wrong, I really like this thing, but what I got is something I've been wanting to mess with for a while now. And above all else, I hate that it is sitting exposed out in the elements like this, only getting worse. I'm not going to get around to this anytime soon. It's only going to degrade further and further if I remain the owner. So we're going to send it on down the line, and hopefully something's done with it. You want to be sure to always paint your valve stems too. And we'll just let that run for a while. If you throw a rubber band on there, you can just walk away from them, which is nice. While we wait for that, I'll give you an update on the Plymouth Valiant here. As you can see, it's in the carport now instead of the flat charger. That whole thing was quite a mess to deal with. First had to move the 360 and 727 that were sitting there in the way to get the flat charger out, push back, this pulled out off the trailer, push back into here. Had to have Dad come up and help because you can only do so many things at one time. So, of course, I didn't film. He doesn't really understand setting up shots and whatnot. I did get a few pictures of the flat charger out there when we had it out in the open. To move this, we actually strapped the engine hoist in the back of the Ronnie truck. I had seen Brian do it multiple times with various different trucks, so I figured might as well because the engine hoist wasn't going to roll on gravel. So, what's new with the Valiant? Not a whole lot since you last saw it. This side of the floor, pretty much done. I've been taking apart a lot of the inner paneling back here and cleaning out all of the areas where leaves and seeds and everything can get down. I got busy with work, which sucks because I wanted to get the floor done before winter so I could put a full interior in this car over winter. We'll see, I might still be able to knock out the passenger side floor pan nonsense. All I'm doing is wire wheeling the floor, getting all of the loose scale off, and they're pretty good until about here on both sides. This is the worst area right here. So this is not ideal, especially being a convertible. All your structure is in the floor. But I'm going to just send it, seeing as this is all solid, both rockers are solid, trans tunnel's fine, along with the firewall and front floor pans on both sides. I think we're still going to be good. If you are going to flip this car for a profit, definitely don't fix it this way, and if you do, make sure you disclose that information to the buyer so they're not under the car one day and see a whole box of self-tappers. All I want to do is preserve what is left here and is in good condition, because All in all, the car really isn't that bad. People in the lower 48 would kill over something like this, I'm sure. I'm just going to turn it into a driver quality rig, take it on one road trip next summer, and probably sell it. We'll see what happens. I might get attached to it. Also, the trunk pan is like rock solid. I love the patina on this car. It's going to look great with just a little bit of work. I can just see this with all the paint buffed out and shiny again. All of this showing really nice. All the interior panels cleaned up and everything. I think I'm going to go with a Mexican blanket with some sort of like blue stripe pattern in place of carpet. Just something that's easy to remove and, wash and even dry, because even if I get a top on this, which I don't have the money to do, it's always going to leak. So I don't want something that can just sit in there and just soak up moisture for years on end. That's how you lose floorboards. Anyway, that's where we're sitting with the convertible. Hopefully I can squeak out one more video finishing up the interior before we hit the really shitty temperatures and get snow. 5 minutes later, that still wasn't taking any wind, which is a pain in the ass. I really don't want to haul the air compressor up here, all the line, extension cord to get back to the Scout. I guess they're going to try the old starting fluid and a lighter trick on this one. And fast forward a couple hours, Scout is gone. And in its place, we have this. This is I think it was a 62 Studebaker Lark. My grandpa used to restore Studebakers. He passed on a little while ago. I always have wanted to get one of my own to mess around with. So here we are. It's no 48 Commander like his was, but it's a Studebaker, and those are unique regardless of model and year. Just look at some of the weird body lines on this. How they've done the doors here. The rear quarter and wheel opening shape. It's all just that little bit different. The transformation of getting this side cleaned up is going to look pretty cool. It doesn't look like much now, and there is quite a bit of rot in the floors. But why I decided to pull the trigger on this deal is under the hood. It's cool that there is a release inside. It's a V8. It's probably Studebaker's 289 or something like that. I'll need to look into figuring out exactly what block it is, but it's pretty cool, and it has like 4-speed overdrive automatic transmission in it. And around the back, it's a TrueTrack. So in theory, if this runs and drives at all, it's going to be a spicy little car to mess around with for a little while. It is the following morning, and I now have a tailgate and taillights courtesy of Brian. Not the right era taillights, and the tailgate is a little, bent up, but it sure makes the truck look a lot better. Finally had a day off and a little bit of time to drain what's practically water out of the radiator of the Charger here, and I'm going to replace that with some concentrate, run it through the system, and hopefully this doesn't freeze up over winter. This thing runs just fine. As you can see from that first clip, though, it smokes really fucking bad. Even as we speak, as I let it idle so things can circulate in there, it's putting out a little bit of a haze that I don't know if you can see on camera. And just like that, our season of freedom is over. Now back to our regularly scheduled 7 months of frozen captivity. We had snow sticking here for about a week. It rained last night and finally knocked it out. My seasonal gig has been a complete shit show. And I'm also sick, so that's fun. Over the past couple weeks in the background, I've just been getting everything ready for snow. In fact, I'm up here today getting all of the stuff I don't want to freeze taken down to heated storage. When we did the engine swap in the Charger earlier this year, we only used water in the cooling system because if it was going to blow, I didn't want to waste, $30 of coolant. So I had to then go through, get it started back up, and drain out most of what was practically water, and put in coolant, circulate it, yada yada. Now it shouldn't blow a freeze plug. The world's worst 1968 Dodge Charger is all tucked away for winter. I drove the International around a couple more times before also putting that to bed. And yeah, this one would get around just fine, but I don't want anybody sliding into it because I'll never be able to find replacement body panels in good shape. And on that same note, they're also using a brine solution up here now for the first time ever. We always used to use just gravel, and it worked just, well, it actually worked better. But anyway, that's just eating cars alive. I really don't want to introduce that to this particular international because it's actually holding up quite well. Work wanted to do a trunk or treat event, so I set up a car show slash trunk or treat event, which of course was a little late in the season for Alaska. There were like 7 or 8 cars that showed up to that. A lot of kids came out to trick or treat. It made them happy, so I guess that's the whole point. We wanted to do that event about 2 weeks earlier. The weather would have been a lot better. People wouldn't have put away their nice cars yet. But we didn't get the clearance for various different reasons, mostly surrounding, corporate red tape bullshit. Halloween is always my favorite time of year. I never end up doing much for it because, up in Alaska it's always snowing in like 20 degrees at the time. But I've always wanted to put together a Halloween car show where everybody decorates their rides and hands out candy. I was using the Torino as my daily until, like a week and a half ago. And it was doing really well, actually. We just got the first dusting of snow, which was like an inch and a half or whatever, but it packed down on my road, and I live on the wrong side of the hill to get sunlight during the day, so it just stayed. And you're not going to get anywhere with these wide-ass tires on stuff like that. Lastly, I haven't been able to do a walk around of the Studebaker yet. I've either been too busy or it's been covered in snow. That about does it for updates in the yard, though. You will be seeing this car probably next spring when I get time to work on it in half-decent weather. Same goes for everything in the yard. I'm unsure how much content I'll be able to put out this winter. You only want to see so many cold starts, and that's about all I can do. I don't have a heated workspace and all that good stuff. Nobody hates it more than I do that I'm shut down for 7 months out of the goddamn year. On the to-do list for next year, though, we're going to get this running and driving and evaluate whether it's worth putting on the road. Patch the cowl rust in the International, put a carpet kit in it, and make sure it's out on the road reliably most of the summer. Finally, get the flat charger running and driving under its own power on and off a trailer to get it to a car show. After that, we can continue on with body work when we can actually move it in and out of the carport and not have it be a whole day ordeal. The petty charger is getting that 360 and 727 with like 24,000 original miles, claimed original miles. The front end also needs pretty much every bushing and bearing and joint known to man. We'll do a little rudimentary body work here and down here where it's actually starting to bubble and rust, so that doesn't go any further. And I want to finally put a carpet kit in it with sound deadening because it is a little loud and tinny in here when you're going down the highway. There's just no padding anywhere. Next year, we may finally do the Starsky and Hutch paint job with the Torino. Despite being pretty original, it could use a paint job and some minor body work, so if I'm going to go through the trouble of doing that, I'm going to make the car I wanted to make when I originally got this like 7 years ago. I'm not going to say we'll have the hearse running and driving by the end of next summer, but I do want it actually attached to the frame so we can move it around the yard, and if nothing else, get the steering linkage hooked up. Last but not least, we will finish sprucing up the Plymouth Valiant convertible. Mainly, we got to just finish up the interior here. Got that side done, ready for carpet. Got to patch this side and get the sound deadening and everything down. Finish cleaning up everything. Put it back together. Then make sure the transmission actually functions. We're going to drive this out to Tok, Alaska. Just because of that bumper sticker. That will be one of hopefully a few different road trips on the channel. Who knows what else we'll end up acquiring or what adventures we'll go on during the usable months of the year. I'll just be trying to plan ahead so I have everything here ahead of time, because what bit me the hardest this summer was waiting for parts. Thank you very much for following along with the channel this summer. We've done some pretty neat things, not as much as I had originally hoped, but it is what it is. Life isn't as cheap as it used to be. I don't know when I'll talk to you next, but I hope everybody has a nice, safe fall and winter season. And if you live in a state with pretty moderate weather over the winter and you can still drive stuff like this, you better be enjoying that for people like me stuck up in frozen wastelands.